Hello everyone, and welcome back to another forecast update. I hope you are doing well and having a great Sunday night. Tonight we'll be talking about PTC 8, which is Potential Tropical Cyclone 8, which will soon be Tropical Storm Helene. And so this video will be dedicated to Tropical Storm Helene, and there's some severe weather risk into parts of the western and central United States, and we'll quickly touch at that at the towards the end of the video, but that won't really be the main topic of this video. And this video will mainly be dedicated towards PTC 8. And also I will have chapters again in the video, so feel free to skip around and go to any section of the video you want to go to. I should have a little more detailed chapters in this video, so any part of the video y'all want to see, just feel free to go to that section in the video, and you can find that in the description of this video, or you can find it in the timeline of the video, where you can just scroll or slide around in the timeline to find that certain point in the video. But first, here we'll be looking at satellite on Zoom Earth, and so here is PTC 8, and it has been upgraded from a tropical disturbance and is now named Potential Tropical Cyclone 8. And so it currently is, as of 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, it is a 1006 millibar low pressure storm at 45 miles per hour. And so looking here, you can see all the rain mainly to the north of the circulation here, and mainly to the north. And as you can already see, there is quite a bit of rain and some strong winds that are hitting places like Wilmington, North Carolina, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and even just in those areas. But Myrtle Beach right now is definitely getting some heavy rain and some winds. You have 30-mile-per-hour winds there, kind of towards the Myrtle Beach area. And so zooming out here, as you can see to our west, or to the west of PTC 8, is the cone of uncertainty, and this is from the National Hurricane Center, and this is the forecasted area where this storm will travel. And so clicking back on this, as you can see, so it is expected to upgrade to a tropical storm tomorrow morning on Monday, September the 16th, 2024, into a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and that'll be Tropical Storm Helene by that time tomorrow morning. And it is expected to make a landfall as a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm Monday at 6 p.m. And so it'll eventually keep going up into South Carolina, and then eventually into North Carolina. And by Tuesday, by 6 a.m., it is expected to be a post-tropical cyclone, and then continue kind of on a northwest track, and then will mainly travel northward pretty much when it gets into Virginia, maybe sometime on Wednesday morning or late Tuesday night. But again, it is expected to be a tropical storm before landfall, as you can see right here. And some of the places, mainly the places to the north of the circulation here, will be have some more heavy impacts from soon to be tropical storm Helene. And so really the areas, like I just said, to the north will receive a lot more rain, and you can really see how the circulation down here is well to the south of most of this rain, and it's just dumping all that rain into the Carolinas, and will continue. But we'll look at the National Hurricane Center in just a second. So now looking at the outlook from the National Hurricane Center. So we do have Gordon down here, and that really won't be a topic of this video, but we do have Tropical Depression Gordon, and again, that is not going to affect anybody at this time. And but here is PTC 8, and we'll click on that, and this is the latest 7:42 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time update. And we'll click here, and then here you can see the key messages for PTC 8, and feel free to pause the video if you want to read that, and I won't be reading that though. But first, just looking at a few things here, we'll look at wind speed probabilities, and then here you can see some of the areas that will have the chance to receive tropical storm force winds here. And so especially areas into northeastern coastal South Carolina and then into southern North Carolina will have the greatest chance of receiving tropical storm force winds. And then as you can see farther inland, those tropical storm force winds, the chances of those winds kind of go farther inland, and as the storm will go inland, it will weaken quite a bit as it goes farther inland, and you really won't have as many areas that will receive tropical storm force winds, but there'll still be definitely some high winds and gusty winds associated with the storm farther inland after it loses those tropical characteristics. But still, as you can see, again, especially into basically eastern South Carolina, can definitely get some gusty winds, and southern North Carolina as well, mainly towards the coastal areas. Obviously we'll receive the highest wind speeds there, but feel free to pause the video as well for this too if you want to see kind of look in more in depth and just look at some of the areas there. So now looking at the earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds, and so by 8 p.m. tonight, or already, there's going to be some strong winds hitting coastal South Carolina and southern coastal areas of southern North Carolina. And then as we go into the morning hours, that wind field will start to shift to the west, and as you can see, by 2 a.m. Monday, you have this area already receiving some maybe some tropical storm force winds. And towards after we get done with the weather model part of the video, we'll look at winds and look more closely at that and which areas could receive the highest winds, or the strongest winds, in those areas. But again, looking to the kind of the north of that, we do have by Monday at 8 a.m. Those winds could continue, and that wind field will continue basically to the northwest, and that will be some of the areas that will be receiving some high winds by that time tomorrow morning. Now we'll look at we'll look at peak surge, storm surge, and then we'll lastly look at rainfall potential. But first, looking at peak surge here, looking at the peak storm surge forecast. Luckily, there won't be a whole lot of storm surge from this system, but still 1 to 3 feet is expected all the way from the South Santee River all the way up to the north and basically to the northeast into the Oregon Inlet there in two parts of the Outer Banks. And so pretty far inland into parts of the west of the Outer Banks will receive 1 to 3 feet of storm surge there. But again, the areas to the north of the circulation will receive more rain than areas to the south, but still areas around the circulation will still receive definitely some gusty winds, and you'll still get some rain from that. But the worst of the precipitation will be to the north, really as it starts to make landfall, and then a few hours after landfall. And then right quick, we'll lastly look at rainfall potential. And as you can see, kind of areas to the north of Wilmington, North Carolina could receive 6 to 8 inches of rain, and then into Wilmington and into northeast South Carolina could see 4 to 6 inches of rain, and then a large swath around that could receive 2 to 4 inches of rain, and then areas into parts of the Outer Banks could receive 4 to 6 right here. And then looking farther north, there could be some more isolated areas into the Appalachians that could receive 4 to 6 inches into maybe Virginia there, and then into again again, Virginia 2 to 4 around that, and then again that large swath of 2 to 4 inch rainfall totals expected there. And then also up into parts of Maryland and Virginia could receive 2 to 4 inches of rain as well. And then basically all the way from kind of central New Jersey to the south, and to basically a little bit farther north of Charleston could receive rain from this system. But that'll be it for the National Hurricane Center. So just real quickly, we'll be talking about the severe weather risk into the north central United States, but we really won't be talking about that looking at models in the video. But here we do have an area in the north central United States that has a marginal risk there, and then that's really all we'll be talking about there. No tornado risk with that, a little bit of a wind risk right into these areas, and then also a hail risk with that as well. And then looking at our day 2 outlook, we do have another marginal risk into North Dakota and northern Minnesota, and then out here into places in northeastern Nevada, into Utah, southwestern Colorado, northwestern New Mexico, and northeast Arizona there. And there's a 2% tornado risk associated with that northern marginal risk there, and 2 hail risk with both of these marginal risk out here. But now switching towards potential tropical cyclone 8. I keep wanting to say tropical storm Helene, but it is not Helene yet, but it probably will be by the time some of y'all may be watching the video. But looking here, we do have a marginal risk into northeastern South Carolina, all the way into a large, basically much of eastern North Carolina there, and a tornado risk is associated with this, and that will be a 2% risk there with that marginal risk. And then obviously there is a wind risk with this, but it is not severe weather related, and there is no hail risk with this either. And then quickly looking at our day 3 outlook, we have a larger marginal risk all the way from basically Montana to the south, into places into the far western panhandle of Oklahoma and northwestern panhandle of Texas, into northeastern New Mexico there. So from this point on in the video, we'll be mainly looking at weather models, and we'll be just really looking at PTC 8 and seeing how it plays out on the different models. And in tonight's video, we'll be talking about the global models just a little bit, like the GFS and European, but we won't be using them as much, because the short range models will be a little better at looking at some of the smaller features into the storm. But first we'll be looking at the GFS, and so it has that making that landfall really near and basically in the same area as the National Hurricane Center does, and it moves it on basically into South Carolina tomorrow morning. But the areas expected to receive a landfall from the National Hurricane Center is again at around 6 p.m. tomorrow. So there is a little bit of difference there with the GFS and the National Hurricane Center. But still looking at the GFS here, it continues to march to the northwest, and then definitely some heavy rain associated with then would probably be PTC post-tropical cyclone, and all that rain getting dumped into parts of western South Carolina and North Carolina, and some heavy rain again into eastern North Carolina right there. And then as well as Virginia and West Virginia, maybe even Kentucky, will definitely receive some heavy rain from that. And then into eastern North Carolina again, Tuesday morning, we'll receive some rain from that, and that moisture will continue to the north and will head into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. But again, really the areas tomorrow on the coast will receive definitely some heavy rain there, and again into North Carolina, South Carolina. So one of the things that quite a few of the models have been showing is that rain, the heaviest rain bands will kind of stay the north, as I was saying earlier, of the north of the circulation there. But then as it moves inland, the heaviest rain band looks like it'll be in the northwestern sector of this low pressure, like especially into North Carolina, South Carolina there. And then really this western band could be pretty nasty as it moves to the west there. But now looking at the European model here, we'll go to we'll stay on the 18Z run. But so it does have it kind of just lingering off the coastline of the coast of South Carolina, and then eventually has it making landfall more accurate and more not more accurate, but more in sync with the National Hurricane Center. And this one has it making a landfall Monday evening, tomorrow. So that would be a lot more similar to the National Hurricane Center. And so again, you can see all this heavy rain being dumped into southern North Carolina and northeastern South Carolina there on the European. And it continues to go to the northwest, and it's not a lot more, but slower than the GFS. And it may have a little more time to strengthen a little bit as it goes to the northwest. But then all that rain is still dumped into South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia there, and especially into maybe areas near like Charlotte, North Carolina, even parts of maybe north of Columbia, South Carolina could receive a lot of rain from that as well. And then on the European, it kind of lingers low, and it just meanders around there and dumps quite a bit of rain into South Carolina, North Carolina. So there might be a little bit of a greater flooding risk with PTC 8 if this were to happen, instead of just kind of jutting to the north there as some of the other models show. But again, that's how the European model shows it there. And now we'll look at the Canadian model, and we'll go back. And so it has it kind of making a landfall near the South Carolina, North Carolina line there, state line, and then has it moving to the northwest and dumping all that rain there, and then moving out into the mid-Atlantic and to the northeast. But we'll go to the Icon now. We'll go back a little bit. The Icon has been one of the models that have been kind of doing its own thing, and it has it making a landfall Tuesday morning all the way into North Carolina, and it's been showing this for quite some time. And I personally don't think this will happen. I do think it'll make a landfall in South Carolina, but still, the Icon says that, and that would have more of a kind of a stronger wind risk into the mid-Atlantic, but and more of a flooding threat up there. But again, I don't think this is going to happen. I think it's going to have this kind of northwest track and then go to the north after it clears South Carolina. And so we'll be looking at the HRRR to start, but I will look at the NAM later on pivotal weather, because the run is loaded more on there, because it's only about halfway done there. But we'll be looking at pivotal weather later. But first, we'll be looking at the HRRR. And so the HRRR does have this pretty similar to the National Hurricane Center. And then it has it as a 1007 millibar, 1006, 1005, and then finally makes a landfall as a 1005 millibar storm. Basically, it's aligned right with the National Hurricane Center at that 6 p.m. time frame, and then that continues to the northwest. And all these, you'll definitely have to watch these bands for that tornado risk as they move onshore into northeastern South Carolina, especially eastern North Carolina. those bands do look nasty, and we'll talk about the low-level jet in just a second. But all that rain is getting dumped into North Carolina, and then into western North Carolina and South Carolina. And again, earlier, as I was kind of saying, that you'll kind of have a constant rain with this western band, but this eastern band, you'll have more breaks in the rain, but there'll be some stronger bands, and then that'll be associated with that tornado risk. So I do think that parts of kind of western North Carolina and western South Carolina could see the worst of the rain, not the rain, but the flooding risk with that. And then it kind of does the same thing as the European, and just has it meandering around into North Carolina and South Carolina there. But that's the entire run of the 0Z HRRR. And we'll look at the low-level jet in just a second right here. And so we'll go back real quick to right here. So going kind of farther into, let's see, kind of we'll go back to Monday more. So really Monday evening, I think, will be the worst time. So you have that low-level jet there really pumping in that that kind of that moisture there in the Carolinas. And so you'll have this cape right here, kind of aligned with some of the low-level jets, and you'll just have to watch some of these storms that move onshore, especially these right here, maybe late tomorrow night into early on Tuesday, and Tuesday there, and then kind of looking back at the low-level jet. So the strongest part of the low-level jet will stay north of the circulation there, and then kind of to the north and northeast of that. And so really we'll have to watch and see if we get that overlap of low-level jets and instability there. That'll be, if that happens, then we probably will have a higher tornado risk with this. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see an upgrade to maybe a slight risk for that tornado risk for tomorrow. But still, we'll just have to watch out, especially with those bands. I mean, even into kind of into Tuesday, we'll look here if that low-level jet's still there. You do have a little bit of a low-level jet, and you could still have some leftover instability there on Tuesday, even into parts of North Carolina and Virginia. But mainly it'll be those areas that the low-level jet is coming out of the southeast or the south, because when you have that low-level jet coming out of the east, then you really don't have that the rich moisture being brought into the storm. And we'll kind of show for an example here. I mean, you have moisture being brought into here, but you really don't have a tornado risk when you have winds coming out of the east as much as you would have a risk coming out, winds coming out of the southeast or the south. But I mean, they do happen sometimes, but it is a lot more rare for that to happen. But let's see here. We'll go off of the HRRR, and we'll look at the NAM on. Let's see. We'll look at that in just a second, actually, because I think the run will be farther out by that time. But we'll look at the HWRF model here, and then we'll look at the HMOM model as well as the HFSA model as well in just 1 second. But so looking at the HWRF model and looking at 8, so we'll go back into the run. And so the HWRF model was a little bit, not a little bit, but kind of a bit stronger than some of the other models. It has it as a 999 low pressure there. So that'll be something to watch. And it has those has that low level jet really pumping in tomorrow on Monday for places into eastern North Carolina and the Outer Banks. And we'll look at radar here. And so, I mean, these storms right here, looking at the HWRF It does have that landfall kind of in the same area as the National Hurricane Center has it. But I know it's hard to see, and you really can't look at it here because we don't have any other sectors to look at besides the one that has the low pressure. But those bands to the east, those definitely look nasty, and most of them you can kind of see a hook with those storms, and then that low level jet with those storms, and that'll be not a good thing at all for those storms there. But you still have that intense band to the north and west, or the northwest, excuse me, of that low pressure. And again, I think this is going to be another area we'll have to watch for that flooding potential into the western Carolinas and even central North Carolina, besides the areas at the coast. I kind of didn't mention the coast here, but again, that heavy rain hitting to the coastal areas there tomorrow morning, and really the areas basically coastal South Carolina and coastal North Carolina will not have we won't have a break from this until maybe sometime tomorrow night. But again, after that rain moves out, you'll still have some of the bands with that tornado risk to the east end of North Carolina. But again, moving on through here, it does have that low just kind of lingering out around here, and then slowly moving up into that flow, and eventually just moves up into maybe Tennessee or Virginia, maybe Kentucky. There on the HWRF. But now moving on to the HMON model here, and looking at 8. So that continues. This is very early tomorrow morning, and then you have about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. It hits and is about to make landfall, and then it makes landfall as a 999 millibar storm, pretty close to what the HWRF is showing. And again, those bands are going to be a major problem, not a major problem, but a big problem for eastern North Carolina with that low-level jet as well. We'll go back right here to look at that low-level jet. I mean, again, that low-level jet will be quite strong in those areas, and then you'll have that extra instability. And this has some pretty nasty bands moving into central North Carolina as well, and then into parts of central and western North Carolina, and then kind of lingering out into Tennessee or North Carolina, and eventually heading to the north there. And then lastly, we'll be looking at the HAFS or HAFSA model, however you want to say it. And then finally, for the models, we'll be looking at the NAM on here in just a second. But again, looking at the HFSA, it does have it. We'll go to right here. So this is tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, and then kind of going into 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, around that period, 7-8 a.m., and then going to about 10 a.m. and then eventually about 1 or 2 p.m. as a 997 millibar storm. So that would move that as a 998, and then eventually there on the HFSA model. And again, I know I've said this about 100 times, but still, those bands to the east will be something to really watch tomorrow as you have that storm move to the northwest, and those bands are just going to have plenty of instability in them, and that low level jet is going to be pretty extreme there. And then that moves in, still have those nasty bands moving into central North Carolina, into the north central South Carolina, western North Carolina, into Virginia, even into Tennessee, and then into Virginia, and that just kind of spins out and lingers around, and just not lingers but meanders around, and eventually moves out there. And that's on the HFSA model. And I'll just play that back a little more slowly there for that whole run, and then eventually just moves on out. And then lastly, we'll look at the 3 kilometer NAM as far as weather models go for tonight. And we go to the southeast sector. We'll go to the radar here. And so this does go 43 hours out, but let me go back to this right here. So it does have that as a 1,000 millibar storm early, kind of late tonight, early tomorrow morning on Monday. And then it has it all the way. It's a little aggressive, I would say, but it has this as a 990 millibar storm, 991, 990, 994, and then kind of makes a landfall as a 990. Kind of goes down, has it as a 991 storm, making a landfall kind of late morning tomorrow. But I don't think it'll be this strong. It may make it to the it may go sub 1,000 millibars sometime tomorrow, but it will only be for a short amount of time. That's what I think personally. But gets it into South Carolina and all those bands into eastern North Carolina and eastern South Carolina there, especially this feature right here will be something to definitely watch tomorrow. And the NAM usually ever does the Cape, but we'll still look at this here. And I mean, you have that little jet with that Cape overlapping. There's not a whole lot at play stopping the tornado development there. And then all that rain gets dumped into South Carolina and North Carolina, and continues to the north there. And then some. The NAM does show quite a bit of heavy rain moving into eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, especially into Virginia as well. And again, on Tuesday, I think we'll have to watch for that secondary risk into Virginia and into northeastern North Carolina. And I think you will have some Cape still leftover, instability leftover when that happens on Tuesday. But that's just the NAM, and I'll play that back one more time a little slower so y'all can see that a little better. But as far as that goes, that'll be it for the weather models. So real quick, I have decided just to go on Pivotal Weather real quick to get a closer look at this on at the Carolinas here. And so you can kind of get a better look at some of those bands moving into eastern North Carolina and eastern Virginia, and there on Tuesday. Again, I do think we'll have that additional severe weather threat, kind of maybe into a marginal risk on Tuesday. I would say at least a marginal risk. It is a general thunderstorm risk right now, but I do think that'll be upgraded to a marginal risk there. And then we'll look at the NAM real quick so you can get a closer look at some of these bands, especially really into northeastern South Carolina. Will be getting hit hard tomorrow morning with this heavy rain in some of these bands, and then into southern North Carolina. And then it continues and goes, and then you have all those bands moving into eastern North Carolina and the Outer Banks, and that continues on and goes on and on until parts into Tuesday and Wednesday for some of those areas. And then by maybe late Tuesday night into early on Wednesday, you could still have some rain hitting into some of these areas into the mid-Atlantic, showing up on the 3 kilometer NAM. And lastly, I know I said we would be looking at the NAM last, but I will look at the 21Z RAP real quick, or the RIP model, however you want to say it. And we'll look here, and then the RIP RAP does have that kind of just drifting into the Carolinas, and then continues. And this has it as makes a quite a bit farther, or not farther, later landfall than the National Hurricane Center, but you do have that as well there on the RAP. And then going back to the HRRR real quick, I will take a sounding from one of the areas with some mixed layer Cape, so y'all can see kind of the areas that would be affected by that tornado risk tomorrow. We'll go kind of later tomorrow night. We'll go right here and see if we can get it okay looking sounding. And that's a okay sounding. We'll go a little bit farther to the northeast of that, kind of into the Outer Banks. Let's see if we can find. We'll go right here actually. Let's see. So yeah, here's a good sounding. You do have a curved photograph here that is representative of that that low level jet there, and as well as you do have a little bit of mid to upper level shear, but not a whole lot. But that's kind of another thing that I've been looking at as well, is you're going to have a little bit of mid and upper level shear. I haven't really talked about that, but that is not going to be from the system. That's going to be from kind of the upper level. You're going to have a kind of an upper level trough, you could say, interacting with this system, making it push to the north. And so when you get that combined with some instability and a strong low level jet, then that could create that tornado risk for sure for tomorrow and then into Tuesday. But just looking at this real quick here, you do have a good bit of 3 kilometer cape. One is 106 joules per kilogram there. And then looking here, you do have not a whole lot of instability, but you do have sufficient instability that would support that tornado risk for Monday. So now finally looking at the winds from PTC 8, soon to be Tropical Storm Helene. And I know we're probably at the 35 or 36 minute mark, so I'll be wrapping this up soon, I promise, if you are still watching. But I know you're probably getting pretty tired of me just keeping on about this and talking. But so first we'll look at the European, and we'll kind of skip around, and we'll be looking at the European, the HRRR, the GFS, and the NAM only for the wind part of the video, and any of the other models like the HRDPS, we won't be looking at that, or the Icon. But first we'll start with the European, and we'll look at wind. We'll look at winds to start, and then we'll kind of look at wind gust. And so we'll zoom in closer to these the areas towards the coast. And so I mean places. This is 5 a.m. tomorrow on Monday on the European. Places near the coast could be seeing winds maybe in close to Georgetown up to 20 miles per hour. North Myrtle Beach 22, Myrtle Beach maybe 20 to 25, Southport, North Carolina 26 miles per hour, Charlotte maybe 20 miles per hour there, and then continuing that farther into there. This has we'll go back a little bit there. And so the European, I think this is an earlier run, so this isn't as up to date as the model I was just showing, but still you do have those winds really picking up there and hitting North Carolina and South Carolina. But I think the strongest areas, or the strongest winds, will be tomorrow morning into kind of later into the afternoon and evening for the coast. But I won't look at the European much for this because this is an older run, but we'll continue this here. And as you can see, those winds move into North Carolina and South Carolina. And again, this is constant winds. This is not wind gusts, which we'll look at in just a second. But places like Fayetteville could see 15 mile per hour winds there. And then farther like into we'll go to Raleigh. This is Tuesday 5 p.m. 13 mile per hour winds, and then farther inland into maybe Charlotte Tuesday night 12 miles per hour there. And then just quite a bit of maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 mile per hour winds Tuesday morning. But again, I probably won't look at the European much after that because it's an older run. But we'll go here on the HRRR. I will look at the HRRR and the NAM a little bit more than I will the GFS here in a second. But actually, we'll go to the GFS and then we'll go to the short range models. But still, towards the coast, especially areas like Southport could get some pretty strong winds tonight and then into tomorrow on Monday. You do have areas like 30 mile per hour winds in Southport, Wilmington 23, and then farther to the north like Surf City 25 mile per hour winds, Swansboro 23, Beaufort 27, and then even into the Outer Banks here, places like Ocracoke and the Outer Banks 26 mile per hour winds, and then Avon 25, and then farther to the south we'll go to Myrtle Beach, 18 mile per hour winds there, Georgetown maybe 15 mile per hour winds there early tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Even into Allendale 19 maybe 20 mile per hour winds there, and then going into 8 a.m. Monday into like Red Springs, North Carolina 25 mile per hour winds, and then mainly just this large area of 20 to 25 mile per hour constant winds, basically from Fayetteville, North Carolina, all the way into Lake City, South Carolina, or Florence into Marion, not Maryland. But zooming out here, you still do have those areas receiving some high winds in the Outer Banks. And then continuing this into Monday, still have a lot of wind hitting into North Carolina and South Carolina. Columbia 16 mile per hour winds Monday 2 p.m. Charlotte 17, Raleigh maybe 20 miles per hour, Greensboro 19 maybe 20, Fayetteville 17, Greenville North Carolina 15, Havelock North Carolina maybe 20 there, Avon 27, Kitty Hawk North Carolina 19. And that'll be at 2 p.m. tomorrow on Monday from the GFS model. And that continues. Then you have the area of lower winds, constant winds into Monday night, 16 mile per hour winds, 16, not 60. And then 18, 20 maybe in some spots. And that continues up as that low pressure moves. And then you could see maybe some like stronger winds into the mid-Atlantic, but it won't be as nearly as strong into the Carolinas. But then we'll switch. We'll go to wind gust here, and so the wind gust is going to be a lot stronger. But the wind gust will definitely be a concern because even into Myrtle Beach, 45 mile per hour wind gust early tomorrow morning. Wilmington, North Carolina, 41 mile per hour wind gust. Fayetteville 36, Florence 39, 40 maybe, Charlotte 30. Then we have just this large area of 30 to 35 mile per hour wind gust, even into Georgia. I know Georgia hasn't really been mentioned much, but Georgia could see some winds too, and even into parts of kind of far western South Carolina and eastern Georgia, 25 in Athens, or 27 in Athens, into Augusta 27. But again, continuing this, you could have this kind of wind field that is just stays to the north of the circulation there, and into kind of northwest of Fayetteville, and then into some of these areas right here. We have this small pocket of strong wind gust there showing up on the GFS, and that continues into Monday night, and eventually just moves on. But I mean, again, you could see some gusty winds into the mid-Atlantic, like Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, Delaware. But again, and then farther up, we'll look here, still some gusty winds up into there, maybe early on Tuesday into Wednesday, possibly. But then going back in time here, we'll go to the HRRR now. And so we'll move back to winds, not wind gust. So again, looking closer towards the coast, we'll go back here. And then this will be 5 a.m. tomorrow on Monday. There could be a strong pocket of high winds moving onshore early tomorrow morning at maybe 8 a.m., moving into maybe Myrtle Beach or Georgetown, South Carolina, Charlotte, Southport, even up to Surf City and Wilmington there. And then that continues, and then you just have this those winds really picking up into Myrtle Beach as that low comes onshore there, and especially into the Outer Banks too. Could see some strong winds there, and then that low pressure goes to the northwest, and then you have areas still receiving maybe 13, 15, 14, 10 to 15 mile per hour constant winds Tuesday morning on the HRRR, and then going back a little bit into early at 2 a.m. Tuesday across much of kind of central to parts of west central North Carolina and northern South Carolina, maybe areas of 10 to 15 mile per hour constant winds there, and that continues all the way until 8 p.m. Tuesday. And then and I'm almost done here. I know y'all are probably getting tired of me kind of talking here, but we'll go to our wind gust again on the HRRR. The HRRR is pretty, I would say this is overdone just a little bit. It's pretty significant compared to the other models, but I don't think it'll be quite this extreme. But it does have wind gusts into eastern South Carolina and to the mid 50 mile per hour range, into even Wilmington in the lower 40 to mid 40 mile per hour range. And then going up here into North Carolina, farther north into Virginia, 5 p.m. Monday, 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts possible there. Into western North Carolina, maybe 20 something mile per hour wind gusts there. And then has this one area kind of near Fayetteville seeing maybe like upwards of 40 mile per hour wind gusts, maybe 50 in some areas. I do think this is again a little overdone, but sometimes the HRRR is pretty accurate with possible wind gusts. But again, it does have but sometimes a stronger bias of winds in those areas. But I do think that really, as we get that one band that I was talking about earlier into North Carolina, central North Carolina, and northern South Carolina, that could really deliver some strong winds into those areas late Monday night to early on Tuesday. And then looking into the Outer Banks, again, you'll have some of those feeder bands going into the storm, really producing some strong winds there. And that continues on there. And then again, you do have some stronger winds into the mid-Atlantic and potentially some of the areas into the northeast. And the wind gusts there still into the mid-Atlantic on Tuesday, but this is far into the run, so I wouldn't count on that right now. But again, some gusty conditions expected on the from the HRRR. And then we'll go back to wind on the NAM model real quick, and this will be the last model I look at for the night. But going back here, we'll go to North Myrtle Beach towards the coast, and we'll go to 11 a.m. tomorrow on Monday. Actually, we'll go back to Monday 8 a.m. And so you do have this wind going around the center of the circulation there, the center of the low pressure, 8 a.m. tomorrow on Monday. And you have all those winds just going around that. And as that low gets closer, and that then Tropical Storm Helene gets closer, you have those winds come onshore, and some pockets of 30 to 40 mile per hour winds going into parts of Myrtle Beach there, and even into the Southport there, and Kenansville, Florence, Marion, Fairbluff, Dillon, Whiteville, Lumberton, Red Springs, Laurinburg. But still we'll have to watch that area too, and that western to northwestern band of the storm, and the NAM is picking up on it as well. I think the NAM is again the most aggressive model showing this here, but again, I do think that band will be responsible for some for some strong winds there. Constant wind speeds of maybe 10 to 20 miles per hour in some spots in North Carolina, and then into South Carolina, 10 to maybe 15 miles per hour in some areas early Tuesday morning. And then still with those bands moving onshore on Tuesday morning into the Outer Banks, those could have some high winds with that as well as that moves up. And then you still have some winds around that into Virginia, maybe 10 to 15 miles per hour in some spots, 20 maybe in West Virginia, 2 p.m. Tuesday. And then even looking into Virginia and Maryland here, I mean, some areas of 10 to 15 miles per hour in some areas, maybe Tuesday evening, but it is a little far out at this time. So again, it's just kind of a waiting game until we get really into maybe late tomorrow night, early Tuesday morning. We'll figure out how the system may impact places into the mid-Atlantic. But again, this won't have as heavy as an impact, as it will into the Carolinas. So again, so if you do live into the areas into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, you will not receive as heavy as impacts as places into the Carolinas will. But then lastly, looking at wind gust here on the NAM model, we'll go back again. The NAM is very very strong on this. I don't think it'll be I don't think you'll have winds this high into some of the areas, because it does show some not this kind of crazy stuff. But I mean, you do have some areas. We'll get our thing here. You do have some areas. It says wind gusts up to 64 miles per hour near Myrtle Beach, and then going into Myrtle Beach, you have winds of 50 miles per hour there into eastern North Carolina and eastern South Carolina, into the mid to upper 50 mile per hour range of wind gusts. But I do think this is a little overdone. But again, I do think you'll definitely have some gusty winds, especially in North Carolina and into South Carolina sometime tomorrow on Monday. But really, once you have the landfall of the system, the winds will stay again to that northwestern band instead of kind of to the south of the circulation there. But not saying there won't be any winds to the south of that, because still there's going to be some winds to the south of that circulation there. But the worst of those winds will be into the north of that low. But even windy conditions into Virginia showing up on the NAM, and then even into West Virginia and Western Virginia there. But again, I do think that's a little overdone. But regardless, there will be windy conditions into these areas that I'm kind of going around with my cursor. But that'll be it as far as looking at some of the wind impacts. So that's going to be it for tonight's video. I know y'all are probably pretty tired of me talking. This is going to be one of my probably the longest video I've ever made. But hopefully I didn't bore y'all too much. But again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I'm going to try to cut down the video as much as I can so it's not as long, because I think we've hit the 50-minute mark, and I was wanting to keep this video. I was wanting to keep it around the 30 to 35-minute mark, but that's definitely not going to be the case. I want to try to get it uploaded as quick as possible. I was hoping for a 11 p.m. Upload, but it's already 10:56 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so that won't happen. But hopefully I can get it out no later than 12 a.m. But again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and again, if y'all are new to the channel, consider subscribing. It really would help me out, and liking the video or disliking it if you disliked it. But any sort of feedback would be great, so I can improve my videos and further improve on my forecasts. I really would appreciate that for any feedback. But again, I hope y'all stay safe. if you live in any of the areas that are going to be impacted by PTC 8, soon to be Tropical Storm Helene. And again, just be weather aware if you live in the cone, or even any areas, not even in the cone, but outside of the cone, over the next couple of days. So especially if you live in South Carolina or North Carolina, continue to be weather aware. But that'll be it for tonight's upload, and I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's night.